That is genius, Audi. I feel like it's lost a bit of its X factor. And as you can see, incredibly comfortable back here and super spacious. Look, I like a thick, girthy knob as much as the next person.
Bloody Volkswagen engines. Look, if you're a fan of these cars, you know what I'm about to say.
So the fans claim that these are one of the most underrated sports cars that money can buy. Should we believe them? Like, we need to find out what goes wrong with these. Also, now that they're getting a few years old, how are they aging? And should you ever seriously consider buying one? How about we find out? Okay, so let's set this up. The TT has been with us for over 25 years, but in this video, we're just going to be focusing on the third and unfortunately final generation, which has been available as either this coupe or a convertible for all of the hairdressers out there. I'm joking, I'm kidding. There are two iterations of this generation, with the post-update changing the visuals slightly, improving tech and equipment, and all the usual update stuff. Internationally, there have been a few different 4-cylinder engines available, but locally here in Australia, we've just received the 2-litre turbo in a couple of different states of tune. And look, yes, there is also the more hardcore 5-cylinder turbo TTRS, but that thing really does deserve its very own video, which we'll get to when one of you guys lends one to us. And depending on the year and model, you can choose between either front-wheel drive or quattro all-wheel drive, and there's a 6-speed manual or a 6 or 7-speed dual-clutch transmission available as well. Then we come to the trim specs, which internationally are available in a plethora of different variants, but locally we have 4 flavours with the hardtop, with a final edition being added recently, and soft tops are available in 5 different flavours. Although with the amount of optional extras available on these things, it's almost safe to say that no two TTs, even of the same trim spec, are going to be the same. Now obviously there is so much more to the TT than just that, and if you do need the ultimate used TT buyer's guide, go to ReDriven.com and check out the completely free cheat sheet. Now pricing wise, the non-RS TTs, they range from about $30,000 to $100,000 here in Australia, but that puts it up against some pretty serious metal. At the low end of the spectrum, you're looking at the Nissan 370Z or maybe a Mazda MX-5, but at the high end, we're talking BMW M2 and Porsche Cayman, just to name a few. And we have reviews of all those cars, and the links are down there. The other link that's down there is for Driver. Now, Driver will find you the very best finance package for whatever car you're looking at buying. The entire thing can be customized, it's all done online, there are no hidden fees, and you can get the money in no time. Plus, do all of that via that link, and we're going to give you a free $150 fuel voucher. Okay, now, looks-wise, these managed to both somehow impress and disappoint me at the same time. Let me explain. See, firstly, I love the size of it. I love the overall design. I love that it's obviously a sports car. We need more sports cars. These things, they need to be celebrated. However, I remember when the first generation TT came out, and it was amazing. It looked like nothing else on the road. It looked like a crazy concept car that somehow made it into production. But then from then on, each generation of these have just become more and more conservative in design. Like, it's still a super sexy looking car, but I feel like it's lost a bit of its X factor. Also, fun fact that many Audi fans choose to ignore, under this sexy bodywork lies exactly the same platform that you'll find underneath a Volkswagen Golf and a Skoda Octavia. Even mechanically, there is a lot of Volkswagen under here. Also, if you're looking at buying one of these because you love German manufacturing, these are made in Hungary. Not necessarily a bad thing, but not Germany. Now, Audi are renowned for their interior design, and they have absolutely smashed it out of the park with this car. Firstly, I love that there's no center screen here. I think design-wise, this is going to age beautifully even over the next 20, 30 years. Here's the problem with the screen. When you dominate the design with technology, eventually that technology will be superseded, and then you're just left with an interior design that's going to age poorly because the technology is going to age poorly. Like, this does have a screen. It's in the instrument cluster, and even that's genius because it means that you don't have to learn 2 different screens. Also, not being a touch screen means that you've got to use buttons to control everything, and it's really intuitive to use. That is brilliant. Also, I love that, you know, it is a sports car. It's for the driver, so the driver has everything he needs or she needs or they need right here. Now, obviously, there's a lot of technology here, and we will take you through all of that in a second. Then we have the materials used. Everything, and I mean everything, feels premium. You've got like Alcantara kind of feel here. Everything is like a soft touch plastic. The leather on the seats is premium. The carpets feel good. It's just like everything you use, the tactility, the feeling of all the buttons and controls, that all feels great. Then we come to the seating position. Perfect. Like, the seats are so comfortable, perfectly supportive. Driving position, a typical Audi, like, it's heaps of adjustability, and when you get in that right spot, it is the right spot. Also, because the belt line of the car is quite high, it feels like the interior is just kind of wrapping around you. It's just a wonderful place to be. Even as far as wear and tear in this particular car goes, this is about 8 years old, has nearly 50,000 Ks on it. What wear and tear? Like, it feels like a new car. Like, the leather, okay, it's getting maybe a tiny bit shiny in the really high traffic areas, but that's being like nitpicking like crazy. Otherwise, like, steering wheel still has good texture to it. There's no scratches on any of the plastic, all the door cards, everything just feels great. It feels like a new car. But look, it's one thing to look and feel and be all like wonderful, but is it practical? Here we go, practicality. You've got a little cubby hole here in front of the gear selector. Got a cup holder here, you've got a spot for your keys just here. There's another cup holder in this center console cubby hole. It's a bit annoying, really. Glove box is not very large. A little net down here as well. Door bins, not very large. No storage under here. Oh, you've got storage under the seats, like hidden storage there. Nowhere for sunglasses up there. That's it for practicality up front. Okay, now in the back seat, I'm exactly 25 centimeters taller than a TT initialed legend Tina Turner. This is in my driving position, and as you can see, incredibly comfortable back here and super spacious. Obviously not. Let's just remember that this car only really has back seats for kind of tax and legislation issues. This is not a back seat. This is not comfortable. Look, you can sit comfortably back here, you just can't be much taller than a fetus. As far as wear and tear back here, obviously none, because no idiot would ever sit back here besides myself. But practicality wise, it actually has got some features. You've got nets behind the front seats, the only seats, and you've also got some storage bins I can't quite reach over at the sides there. I want to get out. This is hurting. Now in the boot, this is where things get genuinely interesting, because it is like really practical back here. Plus, when you put the seats down, which you're going to do because no one's ever going to sit in them, like this is heaps of space for a sports car. This is great, really practical. Now, as we alluded to before, all of the technology in this car is controlled via the driver's TFT display, but what technology can you expect? Well, at the very least, you're going to get sat-nav with voice control and live traffic updates. There's Bluetooth connectivity, front and rear parking sensors with a reversing camera, and all of this and more. Also, this is so cool, all the actual climate control functions are integrated within the actual design of the vents. That is genius, Audi. Now, if you opt for an S-Line like this, it upgrades the stereo substantially. You also get 19-inch alloys and a whole bunch of extra stuff. And then TTSs, they don't only come with more power, but they upgrade the leather to like a premium Napa leather interior. It comes with a Bang & Olufsen sound system that sounds incredible, and there's a whole bunch of extra stuff with those as well. And then the mid-cycle updates, they improve on all of this as well. But again, for all of the specific details, ReDriven.com, check it out on the cheat sheet. But what about Apple CarPlay and Android Auto? Well, the good news is all Mark III TTs come with the necessary hardware, but if it's a pre-2017 model, it might not be activated. Now, Audi can activate CarPlay and Android Auto, but those greedy bastards, they're probably going to try to charge you top dollar for that. You can have a third party activate that tech, but just be careful because there are some dodgy operators out there. Guys, it's not rocket surgery. If you pay peanuts, you're going to get rabbits. Rabbits? Monkeys. Oh, also we should mention, like any premium European car, the list of optional extras in these is huge. Hunt really smartly because you might be able to pick up a heavily optioned example for not a whole lot more than just a completely stock one. Now, as far as safety goes, theoretically the Quattro models should be safer than the front-wheel drive models because more grip technically is more safe. But to take you through the safety features that you can expect, it does seem only right that we have someone from this car's country of origin do the next voiceover. It's Zofia from Hungary.
Mając nadzieję, że przeżyjesz, możesz spodziewać się hamulców przeciwblokujących, elektronicznego rozdziału siły hamowania, elektronicznej kontroli stabilności, kontroli trakcji i pasów bezpieczeństwa, ale niestety możesz zapomnieć o obecnych technologiach autonomicznego bezpieczeństwa.
Now look, we've all heard that's just a hairdresser's car, not a real performance car accusations thrown at these things, but it's important to remember these were never meant to be some like hardcore track weapon. See, these were just meant to be an aesthetically pleasing, relatively practical European sports car that's super enjoyable to drive all of the time, and it's still, even used, nails that brief. Plus, underneath all of this, it's pretty much a Golf GTI, and we all know what they're capable of with some mechanical massaging. Now notice how I said Golf GTI and not Golf R, and that's because this is front wheel drive, and amazingly, it's a manual. Now obviously a TTS with its Quattro all drive and DSG and more power is going to be substantially faster than this car, but the thing is, I was lucky enough to live with the TTS when they first came out, and I don't remember it being anywhere near as much fun as this thing. Like the TTS, it definitely felt more glued to the road and faster, but faster does not equal fun. This just feels more unhinged and lighter and more alive. You can't just jump on the gas and let the all-wheel drive system throw you towards your destination. This requires more from the driver. You've got to modulate the throttle and the steering, and I just find that so much more enjoyable. But like, don't get me wrong, this is still a bloody quick car and fast enough for public streets. And then when you're not hunting for traction out of corners, it is so bloody lovely to drive. Even the suspension, no matter what mode you're in, it's just perfect. It's comfortable, it's perfect for this sort of car. Plus, because it's pretty much the same size as a Golf, like it's easy to park, it's easy to see out of, it's just easy to live with. Handling wise, super predictable, and like there are no weird rattles, no weird squeaks, it just sounds great. Even like the integration of the tech, like I love that I'm not looking away from this line of sight for all my information. I don't have to go to a separate screen. Everything's here, it's intuitive to use, it just makes sense. But there are some negatives. First of all, the knob is way too big. Look, I like a thick, girthy knob as much as the next person, but this thing barely fits in my hand. It's just the knob, its knob is far too big. Also, shift feel, it has nothing on an MX-5 or even a Hyundai i30N. Also the steering, it's typical like Volkswagen dead. There's just no feel to it whatsoever, and that's disappointing in a car like this. Even when you hit dynamic mode, no steering feel. And there are a few other negatives, but let's cover them now. Now, welcome to the heartbreaking part of the video. What goes wrong with these? Let's start with the interior. So first up, the side trim on the seats are, as one owner put it, as weak as piss. And also the plastic that kind of covers the airbags in the seats, that can break really easily. That is more prevalent on pre-update TTs, but even on post-update TTs, it can happen. Also, the speakers in the pre-update examples apparently don't like loud music. If you like listening to your tunes at live concert volumes, the speakers can blow out. There are a bunch of complaints regarding the HVAC system. Everything from these three vents just stop working. That's often a servo issue, through to some owners having problems with like the little controls. The plastic becomes brittle and just snaps and breaks off. It's not hugely expensive to fix, but just a bit of a pain in the ass. A few owners have complained that the TFT instrument cluster display is a bit slow to start up. Sometimes an update can fix it. Other people just deal with it. It's a bit of a first world problem. Also, there are just sporadic reports of weird electronic gremlins, certain buttons not working. If you're in the market for one of these, just push every single button and make sure everything works. Okay, now with the exterior, first of all, we have the infamous leaking rear spoiler issue. The problem here is that water can get into the tailgate hole area, either via the drainage holes that can get blocked up, or the little screws that hold the spoiler and the whole thing in place. The seals around the screws can disintegrate, and again, lets water in. The drama here is it plays havoc with the electronics. We're talking like the number plate lights, the boot release, just a massive pain in the ass. Now, if you're gonna have a go at fixing all of this yourself at home, just be careful of mucking around with the reversing camera, because if you stuff that up, it might need to be recalibrated, and that's a big pain. Now, there are loads of complaints about water getting in the boot in these, and the best thing to do is honestly join the owners groups, because the amount of advice and knowledge owners have on fixing all of this stuff is incredible. We joined those owners groups and they were fantastic. Owners groups, you legends. Okay, now this one affects people in cold climates. When you open and close the door, the glass drops a little bit. The problem is in really cold climates, it doesn't drop, or sometimes it doesn't come back up. So you're either left with a door that won't close or open properly. Now the trick here is to not use like silicone spray or anything like that. Just get some lukewarm water and pour it along here so it kind of gets into this channel, and that should sort it out. Now, owners with convertibles have complained about water ingress getting into the cabin due to the drainage holes around the folding roof getting blocked and letting water in. The problem is, once the water gathers, it can play havoc with the electronics. We're talking the amplifier for the stereo, even the electronic seats, just a nightmare. Make sure those drainage holes are clear. And then finally, with the exterior, like the interior, there are a few reports of sporadic electronic gremlins, like lights, power windows, door lock actuators, all that sort of stuff. Not common, but there are more and more little niggling gremlins popping up. Also, like plenty of other cars, worn out wiper blades are just bloody dangerous. Luckily, WiperTech has you covered. Guys, the blades are easy to order online, they're easy to fit, they're shipped to your door, also for free via that link, and you're gonna get 15% off, and they are genuinely some of the best wiper blades we've ever used. Now, before we get into mechanically what can go wrong, we just need to say there are plenty of TT owners out there, just like Peter that owns this car, that have never had and probably never will have any of these problems. Actually, speaking of Peter, mate, thank you so much for lending us your TT. Also, thank you for watching this video and getting this far, but we want to make you a deal. If you support us, we promise that by you hitting that subscribe button, it's just going to allow us to make bigger and better car content for you. And we just want you to be part of the ReDriven community. Thank you so much. Okay, now mechanically, what goes wrong with these? Well, sorry, can't tell you. I'm not a mechanic, but Jim is.
Bloody Volkswagen engines. Look, if you're a fan of these cars, you know what I'm about to say. By far, the biggest and most common problem with these that does cost a bit are the water pumps. Now, typically they fail at 60,000 Ks, thereabouts, but I've seen them start leaking at 40,000 Ks. And a pro tip, when you're replacing the water pump, consider an aftermarket option. We've actually seen the aftermarket ones last longer than the genuine items, and they're cheaper too. They do quite often have issues with their breather system or the PCV system. The later models, the Gen 3s, that is improved, but it still fails, and it's relatively easy to fix and doesn't cost too much. And those PCV complications, that can actually make worse the whole coking up of the inlet system. Now, when that's coked up enough and starts blocking the valves and the ports, you're going to have to do some sort of cleaning. There's chemical cleaning, but typically a walnut blast is the way to go. Now again, the PCV system on these, if it's not working properly, that can exacerbate the oil leaking issues which these engines are known for. Usually it's valve cover gasket or timing cover seals, sometimes it's a sump, or sometimes it's the rear main oil seal. Now the rear main oil seal is probably the worst one to do because you've got to take the transmission out to fix it. Poorly serviced ones can have timing chain complications, but not as common as the early models. Now historically, all Volkswagens and Audis suffer from complications from feeble engine bay plastics like the water pumps. So as these age, you can expect that to be an issue too. Now the driveline, the DSG in these does cop a lot of criticism for being made of cheese and failing fairly frequently. Look, they do have a few problems with the DSG selector sensors and the mechatronics unit, but overall they are, well, in a standard car, they are more reliable than the internet would have you believe. And if you service them on time, you're actually not too likely to have an issue with it. The DSG also cops some criticism for being fairly harsh and clunky at low speeds when you're driving around looking for a car park close to the hair salon, but most people just get used to it because that's just how they are. Now the all-wheel drive versions of these things, they have a Haldex coupling at the rear diff. Again, pretty reliable in a standard car. If it's serviced on time, you're very unlikely to have an issue with it. Another problem that this family of engines is known for is oil consumption. Now, if you're looking at one or looking to buy one, it's often impossible to tell just from looking at it if it has an oil consumption issue. And it's even hard to pick on a pre-purchase inspection. Your best bet to mitigate the likelihood of getting yourself an oil burner is just make sure the one you're looking at has a flawless and well-documented service history. And on the servicing, it's worth mentioning that although these are a semi-high performance luxury car, the service schedules are the same as just about every other Volkswagen and Audi, and they're basically the same underpinnings as a Golf or a Golf R or an S3. So all of the services should cost about the same of those, and you really shouldn't expect high prices just to service them. But do factor in a water pump every couple of years. Just one more thing, these are a pretty popular tune-up platform, not as popular as a Golf R or S3, and they are capable of immense power. But one thing to remember, if it is modified, they do break. If you modify it and increase the power, that does affect the reliability. So just expect that.
Okay, so after all of that, should you buy one? Okay, look, if your lifestyle accommodates a two-seat sports car like this and you go into TT ownership knowing that you're probably going to spend a decent amount of time and money maintaining and possibly fixing it, then yes, you should buy one. This is the last and arguably the best of all the TT generations, and it might be a future classic. Just make sure you get the right one. But with so many TTs available on the used market, which one should you buy? Well, that's easy. Just get a Carrera T. I'll explain. See, in Porsche 911 world, everybody lusts after the big guns like the GT3 RS and the GT2 and the Turbo S. But to those in the know, those that are educated in all things 911, a manual Carrera T is the best 911. It's the base model, it's stripped of all of the excess, and because you have to change gears yourself, it just adds to the fun. Exactly like one of these. One of these is about $10,000 to $15,000 less than a TTS, and trust us, save the money, spend that money on some quality driving lessons to learn how to drive a manual, maybe spend a few $1,000s on some tasty mods to accentuate what is already an awesome car. and maybe pop a couple of grand aside to pay for any repairs that it might require. But yeah, get one of these. Awesome thing. Although, would you buy one of these, or would you get a TTS, or maybe an M2, or do you save some cash and get like a Nissan 370Z? Let us know in the comments below. See you next time. Then maybe spend a few $1,000s on some tasty mods to accentuate is what. Well, the good news is all
Poorly serviced items. That doesn't make sense. 1 minute. If they're tuned and they are capable of immense power, just be careful. Oh, geez, what am I trying to say? This is the one, ready?